Good evening, good people. Good evening, good evening. This is your favorite coach. We love the game 24/7, Coach Smith. Also, your favorite referee. Um, I'm chill tonight. No referee, no games. No games tonight. But I want to jump on quick with a little bit of breaking news in the world of college sports. There's a lot of activity going on in both the men's and women's sports, right? As we know it. Also, a lot going on with college athletes and football getting ready for the draft coming up, right? So, but yes, breaking news in the world of college sports, recruiting. This is what Coach Smith and Love the Game 24/7 podcast is all about, to keep you guys updated on some things, and also just a little bit about how how my first football camp uh, went this year up here in Wilmington. I'm gonna talk a little bit about that. So yeah, we just want to give some breaking news about all the exciting things that are going on in the world of college sports. What's up, guys? What's up, Mr. Canty out there back at the crib in the Berg in Florida? If you're still there, good to have you on, my man. Appreciate it. Appreciate the folks out there in the world on Instagram that are um, on the show with me this evening. Glad to have you. I'm on also live on my IG and Facebook. But like I always say, you can get to all of my social media platforms with Coach Smith at lovethegame247.com. And I appreciate it if you go out there and check out the website. I'll be updating it and putting more things out there. I will be eventually getting my videos and picks out from the football camp that I just had a couple of weekends ago. I've been busy doing a lot of things, of course, with not just my football stuff with Love the Game 24/7, but I'm also a college administrator, and we're crunch time. We're trying to help these young students decide where they're going to attend college. So I've been busy with those kinds of things. And also, I just want to come on and give you some breaking news and some updates for some of you guys. Some of you all may or may not have heard on some of the stuff that's going on since the March Madness ended last weekend. And so I did win our office pool. Yep, I won the office pool for the men's tournament. I did well in the women's bracket, but as far as our office bracket pool that we had going, I was able to win that pool. I did pretty good overall with some other brackets I was in with the ESPN and CBS and all those other ones. But yeah, man. So I'm excited to be back tonight. I know it's been a little minute. I haven't done a lot of posting, whatnot. But yeah, I'm excited to be back on and sharing some things. But yeah, let's get right into it. And like I said, some breaking news in the world of college sports. We see a lot of moving around going on now, even with the young ladies compared to the men's, right, in college sports with football and basketball, right, with the men. We see a lot happening with the women's as well. We saw what went down with South Carolina women with Coach Staley and her girls against UConn. I was definitely taken back about how big that win spread was between UConn and South Carolina. But then after, I didn't get a chance to watch it, but just looking at some of the highlights and different things, South Carolina ran up against some ball players. I think, they got some ballers on South Carolina, of course, but they're young, but they just couldn't match up well with UConn like they did some other teams, like they did with Texas and some other teams. But of course, the SEC and the men's and women's college basketball were off the chain this season. I mean, they were well represented. They're knocking each other off from getting to the championship. But I was surprised how Duke turned things around with the coach there at women's basketball. They did a good job. Of course, North Carolina hung in there for a minute as well. Florida State struggled. But like I said, with all, just like we heard with some of the college men's basketball tournament going, there were kids that were in the portal already that were still playing in the tournament. And, a lot of people had some things to say about that. But hey, some of these kids have to, secure their spot, as quickly and as best they can. If they don't, this is the rules. that the NCAA has allowed to be out there. So hopefully, the NCAA will do something about that. Yep, Richard, it definitely, man. It was some good games on. That's right. This March, it was really good competition. I think even though we do have this transfer portal stuff going on, it still makes it exciting as to what teams are going to look like each year, right? Um, you just never know. And so, but we have who we have. We have the guard who was the leading scorer in the nation, leaving Florida State, going to South Carolina. She's going to match up with some of her AAU buddies, right? With um, Full Wiley and Davin Johnson, I think is her name. Just it's like 3 or 4 players on the South Carolina team that played with the guard, Tanisha, I think it is, from FSU, and she averaged like 25 points a game. That's what Dawn was missing with South Carolina. She didn't really have that shooter, right, that could just get you buckets, like when you needed buckets. She didn't have that type of player on her squad this year. I mean, Pow, yeah, she, sometimes, they'll hit some, they might be a little streaky shooters. And then there was another young lady that she had, they were a little streaky shooter, but this guard from Florida State, she's straight up, she's a ball player. She can score the ball. She's a pretty decent defender as well. So she's gonna be a big, huge help for South Carolina making a run again next year. But we know Ariella is always gonna have UConn in position, just like Coach Hurley with the UConn men. They're gonna make a run for it again as well, right? Of course, Duke. Duke may have had too much talent on the team. They're loaded with talent. And I know they put everything in Cooper Flagg's hands. No fault to him. I think he's gonna be a great player. He's young still. He's 18 years old and should be a senior in high school. There's a lot of pressure to put on a young man, but hey, he's every bit of what they say is. I mean, there was some questions about him, early on, maybe a couple of years ago, that I was hearing across social media from the basketball pundits and people who know basketball and know the AAU climate about Cooper Flag. But hey, he showed what he was made of, no doubt. He showed what he was made of. So he's going to be a good pro. I don't doubt. If you got any questions, put them in the chat. I'll put my website in the chat. But like I said, there's a lot of movement going on in college sports, and it's great to see some of that same activity in the women's sports that we see in the men's, right? I know Kits, the tall center for South Carolina, for Dawn. She's from Oviedo, Florida. Her younger sister was a freshman this year at Florida, and she's transferring. She put herself in the transfer portal. Like some people say, I doubt if she's going to South Carolina, because if she went there, she didn't play much at Florida, probably like she had hoped to be. But I know she was a really good high school player out of Oviedo, just like her sister was. But she's in the transfer portal. And, sometimes you'll see some of these athletes, men and women in the college sports, will say, they'll say something to the effect like, they have to go in the portal in order to transfer, of course, but they may put a message in there pretty much letting schools know they already know where they're going. So don't bother to reach out, because they probably already have some teams that they've narrowed it down to, that they've been speaking with. So they kind of know where they're going. And Don is losing a player who's been there for 2 years. I think her name is Walker, I think is her last name. Right offhand, I'll have to look it up. But I know she's losing a player. I don't know if she was a starter, but she was a contributor on Don's team. So, but definitely, there was some probably frustration there. And we'll talk about Notre Dame and what's going on there with the women's basketball team there as well. Hold on one second. Let me see what I got going on. Some requests. Let me see if I can get you on here for a minute, Richard. Let's see. Sometimes this thing acts up, and I don't know if it'll work, but we'll try. See if you can get on, and we can chat for a minute, for a bit. I'm not sure if it's working. Sometimes that thing, I tried to get somebody on the other night and couldn't do it on Instagram for whatever reason. I'm not sure what's going on. What's going on with having me to be able to invite a guest on. But let me look up who this young lady is for South Carolina that is that's transferring out and who's coming in. But Don picked up a huge transfer. Yeah, Tanaya Latson. Tanaya Latson led the nation in scoring at a little over 25 points a game. She's a baller out of Florida State. She can score the ball like none other. But she's going to be a huge boost to South Carolina to get some points on the board. And then we have a veteran forward who's leaving. Don, what is her name? Yeah, Sakima Walker. Yeah, Walker. She's leaving South Carolina, transferring, and those kids will put in the message just like Kitts and Walker. Kitts leaving Florida, the younger sister, and then Walker leaving South Carolina. They put the message in there like do not reach out, pretty much telling schools not to reach out because they already know what's up and where they're going. So it is what it is. That's the environment that that's going on in college sports and men's and women's sport. But I know there's over like 1,000 girls in the transfer portal right now, looking to transfer somewhere else. I know, as I was speaking earlier, I know the Notre Dame guard. Let me look her up. She's leaving and going to TCU. That coach has been known for snatching up some top players out of other schools. The TC Texas Christian coach. He's good with snatching some big name players. Olivia Miles, yeah, Olivia Miles. She's the Notre Dame guard, and she's going to be transferring now and committed to TCU, and that's going to be huge for TCU. But there are some, allegedly rumors of something going on between her and Hidalgo, possibly. But that's all alleged stuff, man. You can't always rely on that. There's that person's story and this person's story, and then there's the story that's in between, somewhere in the middle. That's the truth. But yeah, you hate to see, if that was the case, because I know Notre Dame has money. In Texas, schools out in Texas, of course, they have money. Richard, for some reason, man, I can't seem to get you on, my brother, but I'm not sure. Not sure why it's not connecting. I was having some issues the other night. I'm not sure what's going on, but I definitely appreciate you joining me. And if you got any questions, man, put it in the chat. But let me put in where people can go to my website and connect with me and get my email, all that great stuff. But it was some great games, guys. This past week with the men's and women's, and I wasn't sure how it was going to work out with it being so close, because usually the women kind of lag either behind or ahead of the men, and wasn't sure with them having it so close together. And it worked out. I'm sure we had definitely some major views for both men's and women's final, Sweet 16, Elite Eight, and the Final Four tournament with the men's and women college basketball. I know it was great viewership and exciting viewership. So let me just put my website in on my YouTube. LoveTheGame247.com, guys. And I'll be putting some gear out there as well. And more information about what's coming up. And we will have some other things coming up. Looking to do another camp, possibly like flag football. So I'll be updating that soon. Getting information about what's coming up and some other ideas and things that I have going on that I'll be planning. But I'll be also working with all, doing some camps, going throughout Florida, Texas, and North Carolina, and maybe some other states that I kind of they're kind of one of my partners that I work with. I kind of do my own thing, and I do some things with them as well to help with their camps they get going on. So, but yeah, definitely, Richard, you're right. It's the NIL has a lot to do with it. Some kids who are at mid-major schools, it's a time to showcase yourself when you go to these tournaments and you play. You play an extended season. So kids are being recruited by other major schools from mid-major talent, just like the coach from Norfolk State who made the tournament this year. he pretty much felt like, he made an accurate comment. He feels like he's a glorified junior college um, program because, now like he said, junior college coaches are used to it because they rotate kids every year, every couple of years. They're building a new team, right? That's how JUCO is. So these kids can go up to the next level, to mid-major or a major Division I program if they're good enough. So, it is what it is, but definitely NIL has something to do with it. And yes, that it was great to have the Final Four back in Tampa. The last time they had it, I think it was in 2015 or somewhere around there, and I did some volunteering with my oldest son, little Jeff. And I think South Carolina was there, Notre Dame, UConn, and I can't remember who the fourth team was when we had the Final Four. But I know it was great for the Bay Area back home to have that event again at Amalie Arena. That's awesome. And I'm sure they'll bring it back again soon. I remember when we had the dome in St. Pete, we had it. We had the Final Four or something there or whatever it is, Final Eight, but I think it was the Final Four. And I remember when Duke was in it, and I forget who else was in it, but it was good. It was a big tournament, but it was held in St. Pete that year, and that was like in the probably I think in the 90s, mid to late 90s, maybe early 2000s, where we hosted the Final Four in St. Pete in the dome. Um, but yeah, man. So definitely, like I said, there's some major stories going on, breaking news going on with these young ladies in basketball. They're starting to grab the headlines, which is awesome, and it just makes the game even more exciting to watch and seeing what's going to happen with some of these ladies moving around, just like some of the men in college basketball are moving around. It is what it is. Like you said, Richard, NIL has a lot to do with it, and I'm good with that. Some of these kids may not make it to the big show, so hey, they got to grab their bag when they can, wherever they can. But there's no problem with me. But like I said, it makes things a lot interesting to see what's going to happen next season with a lot of this movement going around in the men's and women's college game, right? Um, but absolutely, and so but yeah, definitely. So if you guys haven't heard about some of that, and I'm sure there's going to be more news coming out about who's transferring where, but that's major news. Also, we're looking at in the college basketball, we see where the coach from University of Maryland is transitioning from Maryland, where they showed up in the tournament and made some noise. But you got a lot of coaches. You got the coach from was it Texas Tech that took the job at Maryland. Let's see, college coaching, college basketball coaching changes. Let's see. Let's go back and look over that because it was a major shock to see the coach from Maryland leaving already. Right. You heard great things about what he did to the program at Maryland, and some people want to get mad with the kids, but hey, some of these coaches, you know, right? I'm not saying they're not wrong either. Yep, the women's draft is coming up. I was surprised to see um, Johnson for South Carolina decided to stay. The guard, she decided to come back and stay, and a lot has to do with Tanaya from Florida State coming in because, like I said, about 3 or 4 of those girls play AAU basketball. If I didn't mention that before, that was a big deal, and how they got the young lady from Florida State to transfer to South Carolina because 3 to 4 of her former AAU teammates are at South Carolina. Full Wiley, Johnson, and 2 of the young ladies are she played AAU basketball with. So they were just like, hey, let's come together again like we did when we were little and make a run for a national championship, right? And so she was frustrated, of course, at Florida State. They struggled this year. They usually have a pretty good program over at Florida State, but they've been struggling. So hey, she took her chance to just say, hey, let me go somewhere before I finish my career in college and make a strong run. For a national championship before she moves on. Maryland's Kevin Willard, right? He's going to, where is he going? Let me see the list. Let's see. A lot of coaches. Let me see. Yeah, Leonard Hamilton is gone. They already hired the coach there at Florida State. So Leonard Hamilton retired. I hate to see him go out like that, with struggling this year like that. Indiana's changing coaches. University of Indiana, Iowa. Yep, they let Coach um, um, McCaffrey go at Iowa. Um, who else we got here? Um, Kevin Willard. He's leaving to go. Where's we'll find out. But Buzz Williams took his job, and I was surprised to see him leave. I think Texas Tech to take the Maryland job. So that's a big deal. Where's Willard going though? Let's see. No, Buzz was at Texas A&M. Yeah, and now he's going to Maryland. Yeah, Buzz was at Texas A&M. So that's a big deal. And Kevin Willard is going to Villanova. Yeah, he left Maryland to go to Villanova. That's a big deal. Um, and looks like Patino is going to the Xavier. Wow, Patino. I'm like, look at it, guys. Um, there's a lot of, like I said, there's a lot of changing, going on in the coaching jobs as well in men's and women's basketball, right? Mainly men. Um, a lot of jumping around, just like some of the players are jumping around, and coaches just got to coach, right? They just got to coach. You got to hustle and get you some talent in the transfer portal. Like the TCU coach, he's always getting some great talent. You just got to coach them up, right? These kids these days can make it happen. They can gel and make it work, and do some things, and carry a team. If it's all about getting your young men and your young ladies in your program and getting them to spend time with each other. That's really what it's all about. How you can get these teams to gel in this new environment. But I appreciate you again. Once again, I'm taking a little short, brief message here to just welcome you guys and say I appreciate you joining Coach Smith and Love the Game 24/7. I'm all about trying to help you young athletes, male and female, and your parents understand the recruiting process. That's what this podcast is all about with Coach Smith. I'm live on YouTube. I'm live on Facebook. I'm live on IG. Be sure to follow or go to my website, lovethegame247.com, and you can follow me on all my social media platforms and get all the great content that I've shared that's been out there to help you, you young athletes and parents understand the recruiting process. I've already had the blessing of helping 4 young men continue their college, continue their opportunity to play college sports and playing football. So I got 4 young men I help. I got one young man is like a nephew to me out of Nashville. I'm going to interview some of these guys here soon. LG, he's going to be a preferred walk-on with University of Oklahoma. He's so smart and so athletic, and he's going to do well. He got merit scholarship money for his academics. And I've always said there's 4 type of players that make up a team: good, really good, great, and really great. And most of you guys who are fighting for the scholarships, most of the players are good and really good players. There are not too many great and really great players. So most of the scholarships that people are fighting for are between the good and really good players, right? And so you got to differentiate yourself. And so LG differentiated himself by having high GPA as well as being a great athlete. And so he got some academic money, and Oklahoma jumped on the opportunity to get him in as a preferred walk-on because they know they got somebody, a steal with him going to the FCS or Division II level, because his size and his measurables, he's going to be a great ball player for OU. Trust me on what I'm telling you. And then I got Jabril Murray, who's going to Johnson C. Smith, 6'3", 230-pound tight end. He's a beast. He's going to do well at Johnson C. Smith. I think they got some good talent over there with that coach that came in a few years ago, that's doing some things with them. And then I got Jabril's teammate. They're both out of Laney, Michael Jordan High School. Kanari Brown, he's a all-purpose running back. He kind of reminds me of a little bit of myself. Kid, just built legs and on him, his frame is good. He got great speed and quickness and balance. I just like the way he runs the ball. And if he gets somewhere and continue on those weights and get bigger and stronger and faster, he's going to do some great things. He's going to University of Virginia at Lynchburg. And then there's another young man that just reached out to me that I don't really know. He's just been following me and looking at my content and reached out and said, Coach, I'm looking for a home. And I got him connected with the same team that Kanar is going to. And hopefully he gets signed with them as well. I believe he is. Um, and so that's my thing. I want to help as many of you young men and women out there and parents understand how to navigate through this recruiting process, also with this NIL stuff, because it can be very overwhelming, I'm sure. But also just trying to help you, um, navigate through this whole thing and what you need to do. So, in sharing that, I had my first football camp here in the Wilmington area 2 weekends ago. I had 35 kids who pre-registered, one walk-up. So that was a total of 36 kids, but 34 actually showed up. So so out of the 35 that pre-registered, 33 showed up and then one walk-up. So I had 34 kids. So I had almost 100% participation rate for the kids who signed up, which is cool. That was great. Things happen why some people may not have been able to make it, but we only had 2 people that pre-registered that wasn't able to make it. So um, but it was great. Elementary and middle school age kids. It was a great opportunity to feed into those young athletes. And trust me, there were some kids I know that if they continue to love the game 24/7 and get somewhere in a great program, they will have an opportunity to go to college and get scholarships, and that's for sure. So it was great to be able to, speak into those young boys' lives and continue to encourage them. And some people even ask about doing some personal training because I will do some personal training with them as well. But I did the camp at that time because I know come June 1st, the college camps will be starting up. And so with that, these young men need to know what it is they need to prepare themselves for when they go prior to them going to the camps that really mean something. My camp means something because I'm going to help teach you what you need to do, how to run your 40, how to do your short shuttle, how to do your broad jump, how you go and you give your full effort because you're trying to get the attention of college coaches to hopefully offer you a scholarship, right? And then these kids also need to learn how to live properly and train all the things they need to know. So my goal is to continue to do this, and I'm looking forward to potentially doing a girls flag football because that is growing exponentially, and we need to help these girls um, learn the game as well because they love it as well. And we want to help them because there are more and more schools that are starting to offer scholarships for flag football. So, however, you can get your education paid for is what my goal is when it comes to playing a sport and having good academics and good character is what Love the Game 24/7 is all about with Coach Smith. And so that's what I want to share some breaking news about that as well. That the camp went great. It was good. There's some things that I see that I can do. I'll do better next year, because we need a little more quarterbacks to be able to throw the ball and do a little bit longer, some one-on-one period with the kids than what we did. But yeah, but overall, most people were, I would say, probably about 90 some percent of the people that responded to the survey that I sent out um, were appreciative and glad that something like this is happening in their area because they've never had anything like this in the area. So I'm glad to do it, to share my experience, as a former player and coach, high school football and track coach, and even like I said, having a son, my oldest son, who's a pro athlete in the game of football. And the goal is, hey, he's in Texas, to bring this to Texas as well. I know there's a lot of talent and take it back home to Florida as well because there's a lot of talent there. But trust me, there are still some parents and athletes who need to learn how to navigate through this recruiting process because some of them are at high schools where they're not getting a lot of help sometimes. I was just speaking to a kid refereeing this past weekend. We got a big spring flag football and 7-on-7 league happening this spring going right now. And I do some refereeing on Sunday afternoons and met a young man who's refereeing. And just, I could tell he was a football player just looking at his bill. And he also plays basketball, but he's hoping to get a scholarship in one of the sports, hopefully football, he said. So there are some things I was able to talk to him about what I do. And so it's important that if you got a young person out there, whether it's your son or daughter, your grandson or granddaughter, your niece or nephew, or somebody that has a young person that loves playing sports, because I've always said, it doesn't matter if you're male or female, right? That doesn't matter. And it doesn't matter what sport you play, because recruiting is the same. Okay, guys, recruiting is what it is. Plain and simple. The recruiting game is the same. It doesn't matter. But if you don't know what to do, if you don't know how to go about getting yourself some exposure to these college coaches out there, then you need to get with somebody who knows what they're doing and who knows what they're talking about, and who has relationships with some college coaches. I'm not just connecting with college coaches in football. I'm connecting with male and female coaches in basketball, football, flag football, you name it. I'm making connections. And because I've had the blessing of being able to play at every level and having a son that's playing at every level, um, it's not hard for me to get a coach's ear, because I must know something about what I'm talking about, because I learned from my older brothers and the older guys that I looked up to when I was playing, that came back to tell us and to teach us what we needed to do about being a good football player and a good athlete when I was growing up. I mean, it was, that knowledge that they gave us, and, that they didn't know when they were in high school, but they learned because they got to college, however they got to college. I got some guys I looked up to. When you talk about Dennis Savage, we call Gator. Then you had George McGarrow, who was a beast, right? Who would just lay you out, and and it's crazy. George was all everything in our area in football, and he did some track, but he was a two-way athlete. You're talking about Travis Hunter, but George McGarrow back in the day, who was much older, about 5 or 6 years older, and his brother Juan was a good athlete too. But George was just a beast, and he was a top wide receiver and DB in our area. Hold on, excuse me 1 second, guys. Let me plug up. Something. But yeah, so that's so I take no credit that I know everything just cause of myself. No, I made a point to learn from those older guys that would teach us and let us know what was up, what time it was, and what we needed to do to make sure we secured ourselves an opportunity to go play at the next level. And so, and that's what I did. That's what me and my teammates did. We learned from those older guys, took that knowledge and put it to work. And when I learned about football camps, I made a point to let my teammates know what we needed to do. And I made a point to get my guys, my boys, who who were a little bit concerned on whether we were going to get scholarships or not. I made a point to make sure it wasn't just about me. I made sure I had my homeboys straight too, right? Make sure that they knew whatever I knew. I made sure my homeboys knew, because I didn't want any of my guys I knew had the ability to play college football just like I did. I didn't want them to miss out on the opportunity to play and get a scholarship just like I was trying to do. So whenever I learned something, I made a point to share it with my teammates. And we went to football camp down at Miami, about 6 or 7 of us, and we went down there and we showed what St. Petersburg, Florida, what was in the water from where we grew up, representing that part of Florida down in South Florida. And we stood out, and we made a name for ourselves down at the University of Miami football camp. But that didn't come by me knowing to do that. That came by me getting that information from the older guys. They made a point to come back to let us know what it is that we needed to do to secure ourselves an opportunity. So I just wanted to share that. So I'm just taking this knowledge that I know personally, that I have gone through, and that I've helped many young athletes along with my son and others, to be sure that they have every opportunity to get themselves to gain some exposure to help themselves get recruited. Because every young person, male or female athlete, if the coach isn't doing it, they deserve to, to have that opportunity to fulfill a dream of playing college sports, if that's what they so desire to do. And as a coach, you need to make everything in your power to make it happen, and make sure you're honest with your athlete and let them know what they need to work on, how they need to better prepare, getting bigger, stronger, and faster, and being a student of the game, whatever sport it may be, so that they can hopefully get themselves their education paid for. And today we have NIL, but if we keep the main thing is trying to get yourselves exposed so you can get a scholarship. NIL is just, the icing on the cake if that happens. So that don't need to really be your focus necessarily. Your focus need to be is I need to show what type of baller I am in whatever sport I'm playing, that you can do it at a high level against some other top level talent. And when you can do that, you're gonna open up other doors as well. But if you just focus on the main thing and keep the main thing, and fulfilling that dream of going to play college sports, all those other things will fall in place if you dedicate yourself and you love the game 24/7. And you get somebody to help coach you up and mentor you. That's also very important. Okay. You can't do this stuff by yourself. All right. You always need somebody in your corner. You got to first believe in yourself. And then when you can show that you believe in yourself and your talent, you'll have other people believe you. You'll have other coaches, college coaches who you want to recruit you believe you. But if you believe in yourself, you're going to show the results on the field, on the court, right? Wherever it may be, in whatever sport you're playing. That's what it's all about. And that's what we do here at Love the Game 24/7 with Coach Smith, right? I appreciate the love, guys, but I mean, I'm just going to be real with you. There's just a lot of kids missing opportunities because they just don't know, and parents just don't know. And some of you all staying at schools where you're really not getting the help that you deserve or you should be getting, or the information that you need. And you might need to leave and transfer, especially if you're in the 9th or 10th grade, or in parents. While your kid is in middle school, you need to be, looking at the high schools, seeing where you need to, send your kid, because that's what I did with my sons, with both my sons. While they were still in middle school, I was already peeping where I was going to potentially have them go play. I wasn't just going to go anywhere because I knew some of the coaches in the area weren't places I wanted my kids to go and play for because they weren't helping. Okay, I'm just going to be honest. So I was already focusing on, okay. And then when I saw Coach Davis was still coaching where he was coaching, I knew where I was going, and wherever he was, because he helped. He's one of those genuine coaches where he'll do everything he can. If you're doing what you need to do as an athlete, he's going to do it. He needs to do as a coach to help you get to the next level. And I was glad to be mentored under Coach Davis at Clearwater Central Catholic, where I coached for 8.5 years. And then I went on to a sister school closer to my hometown in St. Pete, just down the road at St. Pete Catholic for 4.5 years, there. So overall, I did somewhere between 12, 13 years coaching football, and did about 4 or 5 years coaching track. So loved it, enjoyed it and miss it. So now I'm into refereeing, I'm into doing my podcast so I can help you parents and young athletes out there learn this whole thing. So I just want to take time, go to my website, lovethegame247.com. I'll be making some updates. I'll be having some gear and stuff out there. I'll be updating that soon as well. But I had my camp. Thought I had my camp t-shirts up here still. I showed it the last time I was on live. I'll try to remember next time I come on live. But yeah, I will be updating you on the next time I do camp this summer. I know my son, little Jeff, who's was asking like, yeah, Dad, how did your camp go? He's ready to do get in with me to help me do some camps. I told him I need him to get his pro buddies that play pro ball to show up at my next camp when I play in something. I need to get those guys there, and so you can talk to some guys who've been there and done that, and maybe still doing it, and can give you good advice on how and what they did to get themselves recruited in high school, right? So, but like I said, if you got a young person, you got a family member, right, niece, nephew, son or daughter, and you need to learn how to navigate this process, because I'm telling you, the reason why some of these kids are so talented today is because they have some private coaching, and you need to do some of that today, because that's just how, the game has evolved, right? Like my son was a quarterback. I could only coach him so much as a quarterback. So when I found him a private coach through Coach Davis that I coach with, gave me a name and said, hey, this guy you need to get your son with and get him coached up to play quarterback. And trust me, it is why he got recruited. That was one of the reasons why he was able to get recruited as a quarterback coming out of high school, and why he was one of the top. Well, matter of fact, he was the offensive player of the year in the Tampa Bay area as a quarterback, and took CCC to their first state championship game. But it has a lot to do with, of course, having a dad and an uncle that played at every level, but also me having the wherewithal to say, hey, I can only take you so far. I didn't play quarterback. I was a running back, and play wide receiver and some DB. I can teach those, but when it comes to quarterback, you need somebody who played that position and played it well. And Coach Kaleo, back home, who was training guys at that time, played at University of Maryland, and had opportunity to play and did play some pro ball briefly, and knows that position in and out. And he mentored my son, and that's what I'm telling you, some of you parents, even if your kid plays another position, it's good to have somebody to train them, right? But make sure it coincides with the season, right? And that coach is in sync with what they're doing, with the offense is being run at their high school, right? But hey, cover three is cover three, cover two is cover two, and man to man is man to man. I don't care, coaches may have different little names and schemes, you may be doing man on one side and zone on another side, but hey, it is what it is. So, but kids need to learn the technique and get with somebody who knows wide receiver drills, right? Like Coach Rod Williams back home in St. Pete, right? Most of those guys, like Valdez Scantlin, who's won Super Bowls, was trained by Coach Rod, who's at Clearwater Central Catholic. Coach Rod Williams, um, um, Lewis Murphy Jr. from back home. He's another one that trained with Coach Rod. So there's a lot of these young men that back home that played receiver and made it to college and the pro level, trained with Coach Rod Williams back home. Giving you a shout out, Coach Rod. So if you need some wide receiver work and you're in the Tampa Bay area in Florida, look up Coach Rod at Clearwater Central Catholic. He's a love, man of God, integrity. He loves working with young people. He's been doing it for years and coaching up a lot of guys. Like I said, he's coached some of these guys at MVS that have won Super Bowls with Kansas City. He knows what he's talking about. You better find somebody, right? Right, even the Griffin twins. That's right. He had the Griffin twins, all those guys. Rodney Adams, all those guys from the Wood, from Lakewood. A lot of them from my high school represent. Hey, always. I'm gonna give a shout out to the Wood. But yeah, a lot of these young men from back home who played the receiver position. There's some other guys back home as well that I, just it'll come to me, but that train a lot of these young men back home. And if you look on pretty much any college roster, you're going to see somebody from South Pinellas County. You better believe that, what I'm telling you, because we have talent in that area, major talent that's playing at every level. And so I'm proud to say that. So there's a lot of young men come out of that area. You talk about the Newton kid, Johnny Newton, with the Washington Commanders. I had the blessing of coaching his three older brothers, and him and him being there as well for a year or two when I was at CCC playing D-line and running back. But definitely, yeah. So we got talent, man, all over the place. And so I'm up here in North Carolina and Wilmington area trying to tap into it because I see a lot of talent up here, but nobody's really, giving some direction, like some of these kids need up here. So I'm looking to tap into it. So if you're in the Wilmington, Carolina area, or wherever you are in North Carolina, you want to come down to Wilmington and get coached up as a wide receiver or a DB or running back, I'm your guy to help you. Don't look no further. Coach Smith is right here. You just need to get on my website, get in contact with me if you want some coaching. And some of these kids need to be coached before they get to these camps and wreck themselves and not do and perform like they need to when they run their 40s and all those other things. And it's just simple, in a lot of cases, technique. So some of these kids it's not necessarily that they need to run fast, they need to know how to run, right? Because some of them are fast and some of them just don't know how to run correctly or how to get off in their start. So those are things that I should like to share. But like I said, breaking news with all the things going on with college sports and the NFL draft, we got Shedeur Sanders coming up. It's going to be interesting to see. He's kind of dropped in that top 5, but still in the top 10. Potentially, I think he may go either the Giants or the Saints. So it's going to be interesting to see. And if he doesn't go to the Giants, you best believe the Giants are probably going to get Milroe out of Nebraska, right? Because he has that ability like Lamar Jackson potentially, if he can get coached up and don't have to worry about trying to come in and start his first year. He can sit behind Jameis and Russell Wilson Even Shador, whoever the Giants pick, they need a splash. They need somebody that can do something. You need a guy like a Shador Sanders who's a leader because how he was taught by his father, Deion Sanders, of course, right? You need a guy like that that is confident. I don't know of any quarterback that's not confident that's good. Okay, I don't want some quarterback that ain't confident and got some cockiness to him. That means we're in trouble if he doesn't. So get all this rumor stuff. People saying, some people are saying that because they don't want somebody else to pick him, so they can pick him. You got to know how they play this game sometimes. Some people try to put that out there, trying to make it seem like they're not interested, but they really interested. Yeah. So it's going to be interesting to see what this draft is going to look like. Of course, Travis Hunter, you know, I don't think, I know he wants to go both ways. He will go both ways, but he's not going to play every down like he did in college. This is not college. NFL is not college. Okay. You can be as conditioned as you want to. When people start laying licks on that little body, okay, because he's not that big, he ain't small, he's not that big. And if you got to lay a lick on somebody, right? Because he's not afraid to tackle. I've seen that young man. He's confident, and he's not afraid to come up and make some hits. But you're not gonna play every down in the NFL. These are the best of the best. When you're in college, you're not playing. Everybody's not the best. A good number of the guys are the best players. But when you get to that league, when you get to that level, everybody is the best. Okay, and best, and they prepare the best. Okay, so it's not college, but yes, he will get the opportunity to play both ways. You'll be crazy not to put him in at wide receiver or DB or whatever it is. It's just going to be interesting to see what they draft him as initially. Are they going to draft him as a DB, or are they drafting him as a wide receiver, or it's going to be interesting to see. But mind you, when he did his pro day, when Travis Hunter did his pro day, okay, he did pro day as a wide receiver. He didn't do anything else at the combine much at all. But the only position he worked out for was wide receiver. He didn't do any defensive drills. He didn't do any of that. He did all offensive drills when he finally decided that he was going to perform in front of NFL execs and coaches and all that. It wasn't at DB, it was at wide receiver. So just be aware of that. Take note of that. But trust me, he will play. He will play both ways, but it won't be full time both ways. No. Now they may decide, depending on what game they're playing, does he need to play more cornerback today than wide receiver, or vice versa? Does he need to play more wide receiver today than he needs to play corner? They may come because he can play both positions at such a high level. They may work it that way. There may be some games where he's more at DB than he is a wide receiver, and there may be some games where they feel like, hey, we need more of him at wide receiver this Sunday than DB, and play a little bit of DB. So it's just going to be interesting to see how they work that. But yeah, he will get to play both sides of the ball, but it won't be full time both sides like he did in college. He's not going to be able to do that at that level. Period. I don't care. I'll say this: if he did it this first year, he won't be doing it this next year, because he'll realize the punishment and the pounding that his body would take, and he won't be in the league long if he tried to play every play. His career would be shortened, right? And you want to get paid for punishing your body like that, playing that sport. So, and yeah, that would be nice. Canty, we'll see. And little Jeff, where he ends up if he decides that he wants to keep playing or not. So we'll see what's going on with that. But yeah, yeah, he may try to go both. He may try to go both ways full time for a season, but he's not going to do that all his career. You best to believe that's not going to happen. In any team smart enough, would not let Travis Hunter go full time, and they're not going to do that because you're not going to last in the NFL. Okay, you're not going to last in the NFL doing that like that. D.R.I.V.E.N didn't do it, and D.R.I.V.E.N was very capable. Okay, there were some other guys that were very capable. Okay, trust me, there's guys I know are very capable, but playing at that level, you're not going to do it. What's up, Pearson? I see you, bro. But yeah, at that level, you're not going to be playing every down. And like I said, his career would be very short if he tried to go every down on offense and defense playing in the NFL. It's just not going to happen. his career, like I said, would be short lived, um, and we don't want that to happen. Um, but um, but yeah, so let's just see what's going to happen when this draft comes up, and see how things end up. But like I said, Shador, you know, the Saints wouldn't be a bad place for him to go now. That wouldn't be a bad place for Shador to end up. But he'll be a top 10 pick if he does. And so now, there hasn't been a lot of movement with teams trading up or down. We haven't seen any of that yet. It may, we got another couple of weeks before it happens. I think it's on the draft is on April 24th. Yeah, April 24th. So we just, a little over 2 weeks um, that we have. Tomorrow will be 2 weeks that we have the draft that will be coming up. So after tomorrow, we'll have exactly 2 weeks. So April 24th is draft day. So that's going to be exciting, guys. But breaking news was on that situation is just about him dropping, and some other guys, potentially moving ahead. But that's because the needs of some teams, right? Some teams don't need quarterbacks. Don't need quarterbacks um, that early, right? They can get some quarterbacks in the second, third round, and fourth round. So, but Shador and um, and Cam are going in the first round. They're first round worthy, right? Um, um, yeah, definitely. I agree with you, Richard, that some of these guys they it definitely could take. It would be good to take a year and not thrust these guys into starting at quarterback, right? Because now, if there's anybody I think could do it, I think Shador, because of just the type of young man he is, and some things I've heard about him and his work ethic. I think he could. I just wouldn't want him to do it. I just would rather him just learn. And same with Cam from Miami. I think he could do it as well. But there's nothing wrong with sitting a year, right, and learning, right? Nothing wrong with that. And so it definitely will be exciting to see how this draft is going to go with those two guys. But I definitely believe they're going to be first round guys, and some of those other guys will probably either come. I believe Milrow would be a second round pick, and maybe the kid out of Ohio State could be a second round pick. Um, but most of those guys are probably not going to go until about the third or fourth round, maybe fifth round or later. But yeah, there's some, and that kid, I'm trying to think now, the kid out of Ole Miss, take that back. That kid out of Ole Miss could be up in there somewhere as well. He's a pretty good quarterback. I like the quarterback in Missouri. It's come out of Missouri. I think he was a senior quarterback out of Missouri. I liked him too, but he won't be a first round. He'll be a mid to late round pickup. University of Missouri's quarterback. He was pretty good. Let me see. Let me see what his name is. See what his draft status is. But he was pretty good. But the kid out of Ole Miss is pretty good as well. He could be up in there. Yeah, Brady Cook. Brady Cook is that kid out of Missouri. I've watched him. I like him. I like the kid at Ole Miss. But I definitely like Tennessee. Yeah, Tennessee. That's why I think they're going to take Cam. They're going to take Cam out of Miami. Now it'd be surprising to me, Pearson, like you said, Tennessee Titans. I know they have the first pick. They could go for Shador, and Cam, but I think everybody's seeing that Cam might, yeah. Carolina Panthers and all I think Bryce is showing some promise at quarterback. I think they'll be okay. Bryce needs some blocking also, and they need a run game. That's what people fail and forget, man. Sometimes you gotta have a run game, man, to protect guys, protect these quarterbacks, especially when you got a small guy like Bryce, right? And Bryce ain't a burner like a Milrow, he can get out of some stuff, but he ain't a burner. But I definitely think the QB out of Missouri, yeah. Brady Cook, watch Brady Cook, where Brady Cook ends up. Um, I think he'll be a solid pick. But I've watched him for the past 2 or 3 seasons in college at Missouri. He's pretty decent. Um, I really like his game. But the kid at Missouri is good. But definitely Cam and Shador, I see being the first 2 quarterbacks coming off the board in that first round in the top 10. But yeah, so I mean, it is what it is, man. But when you look at Milrow, man, Milrow got some upside, man. You know, there's a lot of upside to him, man. Um, who was that? Jalen should have stayed. Well, I mean, I don't know, man. We'll see. Sometimes these guys, man, could um, use an extra year, another year. I don't necessarily disagree with that, but man, when your fire is hot, when your iron is hot, sometimes you got to go ahead. The kid who probably should have stayed another year was a kid at Florida that went to the Colts. Um, he hadn't played a lot of snaps in college yet, starting as quarterback. He could have possibly used another year to progress, but his iron was hot, right? His iron was hot, and to make that kind of money. So I think he's going to get it together, right? I don't doubt that he will. Um, but he could have stood maybe to stay another year, but because like I said, but his draft stock, man, was first round. So how can you tell a kid to stay when they got a first round grade on them? You know what I mean? It's just tough to stay in college when you get a first round grade on you. That's what you want, right? That's what you as a college athlete and whatever your position is, these kids get graded, and they know. And talk was that kid out of Florida that got drafted to the Colts 2 seasons ago. Um, he had a first round grade on him, so you got to leave, because you got to think, man, what if I get hurt, this and that, yeah, but I got a first round grade, yeah. Now if I had a late round grade on me, but I have first round potential if I stayed another year, then it might make sense. You know, it might make sense to stay another year. But when you have that first to third round grade on you, first, second round grade on you, you'll learn. They'll do what they need to do in the pros and get you caught up. And then you got to put in that work yourself personally. To get it together. But watch that Cook out of Missouri. Yeah, Brady Cook. Yeah, he's gonna be something to check somebody to check out. Um, but guys, that's my breaking news, man. I appreciate you, man. Make sure you pass this word on, man. Subscribe. Subscribe to my YouTube channel for you those who are watching this live or the recording. Be sure you click on that and then also hit that bell so you'll get notifications when Coach Smith goes live on YouTube. And let me put this is my website that you can share with those my buddy Pearson, who's on here, helped me at my camp. Um, um, so I'm gonna put for event info because there's some things that'll be coming. So I'll put that in the chat. But yeah, my buddy was there. Yeah, man, you got to go when you're hot, bro. You got to go when you're hot. You don't want to mess up your money, right? So if it don't work out, at least you can say you got paid. Amen. I mean, hey, you just hope that the young man puts the work in. I don't doubt the kid at Florida that went to the coast is putting that work in. But man, when you hot, man, you can't stay. You can't stay when you got that high of a grade on you. You gotta go, right? You'll be crazy not to go. But if you don't have a high grade, you got a low grade on you, um, and you feel like you have a higher grade talent, and they may say, look, yeah, yeah, right now, man, we don't see you going really high at all. Um, and maybe you want to consider staying a year. That's when you stay. They like say, look, you stay another year and you grow, you could potentially move yourself up to a first round pick if you show some significant improvement, right? When you got a late round to prefer a walk on kind of thing, you fifth, sixth, seventh round pick, but you got potential first round talent if you stay another year and grow, and learn the position more and get your arm strength right and your accuracy right. and reading defenses and all those things and learn those things and put that work in over that summer. And man, next thing you know, you put out a good year. Now you're a first round grade, right? Second round grade compared to being a late round grade. Um, so um, I missed it. Didn't realize I had gotten logged off. Sorry about that, guys. But yeah, I'm getting ready to call it tonight. But I appreciate you guys joining me. I just want to jump back on real quick just to say I apologize. I didn't see my countdown on my IG. Um, I didn't see my countdown on my IG countdown, but I'm getting ready to call it tonight anyway. I just want to jump back on to let you guys know I'm getting ready to sign off, and I appreciate you joining me. And like I said, hit that subscribe button if you're watching this live or you're watching the recording on my YouTube. Okay, but man, I'll be putting out some video of my camp. I'll be sharing some of that stuff as well and putting it out there on my YouTube and as well on my IG stories and things like that to let you guys see um, these young kids out there in elementary and middle school level having them a good time. But I appreciate you guys joining me tonight, man. And it's all good. Y'all have a blessed night. Take it easy.